I am here. Your mic is not on though. Still not. Hear it. There you go.
Mayor Owen.
There it is. Present.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Colodi.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Sachs is absent. Excuse.
Do I have a motion to excuse Vice Mayor Sachs?
So moved. Second.
City Clerk.
Commissioner McGurk.
Motion to excuse Vice Mayor.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Colodi.
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman.
Yes.
Mayor Owen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. First item up, public participation. That's you, Mark. Anything to say in this meeting? All right. Close public participation and begin the workshop. I think we start off with David. Actually, before David starts, real quick, I wanted to introduce a new staff member. Actually, will you just introduce your new staff member that's here with us today? Just give her name real quick. Yeah. New staff member on the budget team, the finance team.
Yes. Hi everyone. So we have Sandy here, Sandy Nerot. She is our new business analyst. Started 2 weeks ago.
Excellent.
So she's excited. She has a really good boss.
And a New Smyrna resident, lives close by the city hall. So
yeah, and she's a resident of New Smyrna and really big, community. She participates a lot, volunteers a lot. So we're very happy to have her. And as of now, finance department is fully staffed. So we're very excited about that.
awesome. Thanks. Welcome to the team.
Welcome.
All right, David, I don't think our mic's on still. All right, maybe it is.
Just gotta eat it a little bit.
There it is.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. This first one is going to be for Leisure Services. Little background on Leisure Services. We have the administration and the recreation, which covers the Babe James Center and the city gym, Brandon Center, which controls this building, Live Oak, Coronado, the Women's Club, and then the sport complex. Some of the goals and accomplishments that we're tackling this year is we wanted to add Wi-Fi to the football stadium. We're looking at anticipating spring of this current year to get that completed. It'll be another way to sell the stadium and the new turf that was put in. We're making adjustments to all the city special events in light of COVID. We've already done the Santa Parade, altered that, the Candy Race, and the Mayor's Fitness Challenge, and every event that's coming up after that's going to be altered to a certain extent to provide for COVID regulations and things of that nature. Our current baseball league no longer offers softball, so we are going to become affiliated with Little League National, and we are going to be starting our own girls softball program starting in the fall. It'll be a city-run league under the umbrella of Little League National, so we'll be part of that bigger group to start bringing girls softball back here. And the high school softball coach has agreed to help us run some clinics and camps and things like that to help us get that off the ground as well. So that'll be coming up shortly. We are bringing in new programs to Leisure Services and Recreation. We've already added esports. We're looking to add the youth basketball. We have a whole another list of programs that we're going to be starting either over the summer and as we get into the fall and winter, which actually, I'll skip one real quick. That actually brings us to what we want to do is create a program guide, a brochure guide, if you will, that kind of tackles, fall and winter and spring and summer and the different programs that we are going to start offering through Recreation and Leisure Services and really get that into the homes so families can start planning different programs. They have everything from top classes to adult classes, and they can really start planning what they're doing over the course of the next 6 months. We're replacing all the site lights throughout the complex. We've already done all the parking lot lights last year. All the site lights on the buildings are getting replaced this year. We've already done 45. We're looking to have the remaining 35 done, hopefully by the summer. We did offer promo rates, which you all approved in January, and we've already started seeing additional rentals along with those promo rates, so they are already starting to pay dividends for us. And we started a youth fitness challenge, kind of a play on the mayor's fitness challenge, but started it for the youth. And one of the things that we did was we partnered with PAL, and one of the if they have done everything they were supposed to, PAL paid for the kids to go to Universal, and they went to Universal 2 weeks ago, and PAL paid for the kids who were in the program, and if they weren't in the program, they could have paid to actually go to Universal themselves, and we provided the transportation for them. This here is our current staffing levels for this year compared to last year. Overall, we deducted two staff from the previous year to the current year. That does not include the 6 part-time summer camp counselors that we bring on board every summer for the summer camp program. For the year-to-date, so far for our expense budget for leisure services, we've expended about 17.5% total, which a lot of our major events are coming up now. We're going to see a lot more expenses coming in that'll bring that number to where it should be for midway through the second quarter of the year. For the Brannon Center, we're sitting roughly overall at 32%, which is kind of right where we should be for the Brannon Center, Live Oak, and Coronado. So we're sitting good there. We're not we're keeping within our proper budget there. Our sport complex, we're sitting at about 30% of our budget. We've already seen a cost savings not only from what our current budget is, but from our cost savings from the addition of the field turf and saving money on everything that goes along with that. As we go along into the capital projects for what we're looking at for the next fiscal year, at the sport complex, we're looking at a new irrigation pump station. We have a pump station over there right now that hasn't been replaced since the sport complex opened. It is constantly being band-aided, and our pump, actually last week, one of our pumps, we have 2 25 horsepower pumps that actually pump all the water to all the fields at the complex, and one of them just went out last week, so we're going to be replacing that one. Again, another Band-Aid, and we're looking to replace the whole pump station next year. It's a big cost, but it's something that's necessary, where if we lose that pump station, we have no water for the complex, for any fields. Another thing that we're looking at bringing in is netting for fan safety at the softball fields. What we're seeing with a lot more tournaments going on, what we're seeing, if you can picture the softball, the threeplex for the softball fields, as soon as it goes up and over the net, it's going straight into where all the families sit, and we're going to try to bring in netting to where the ball will hit the netting and come off slowly to a hole in the netting that can get the ball retrieved from them. It's more of a safety aspect more than anything else. We want to sandblast and repaint the open bays. So you see what's happening at Smith Street, and you see what's happening at the streets open bays. These are going to be well on their way to the same kind of look in the next couple years if we don't sandblast and repaint them now and take care of them, before they get to that level to where they need to be replaced. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game and get them taken care of. Then then the other aspect we're looking at a skid steer with all the attachments. What that'll do for the complex is it'll allow us to actually move equipment on fields without tearing up the fields. When you're bringing a big tractor on the fields, you're leaving ruts, and a skid steer is definitely lighter than a tractor. We can move soccer goals without damaging the grass or anything along those lines. As we move into the recreation, we're looking at painting the Babe James Center. We do have a pickup truck that's on hold right now for this year, so that could be taken off potentially if we move forward this year with it. We do want to put a pour-in-place material for the playground at the Babe James Center as well. And staying with what we're trying to do over at the complex and switch over to LED, we want to replace all the gym lights in the Babe James Center and the city gym to LED lights, which will help us lower the overall energy cost for us. Then the expansion of the skate park. We were going to try and do it this year. To date, as of 4 o'clock today, Echo still has not set their dates for Echo for this year. And with that being said, by the time they set their dates, by the time we're able to go out to bid and do everything we need to do, we're going to be in the next budget year. So our plan was to potentially try and just shift that whole project into the next budget year and start cleanly with it. As we move into the Brandon Center, Live Oak, and Coronado, over at the Live Oak and City Gym, right next to where the pickleball courts are, we were looking to add an outdoor fitness area for seniors and the aging population, which would be kind of one of the first of its kind here in Volusia County. And as we get later in the slides, there's a picture of what that'll look like. We're getting to the point as well where we need to start putting it in our budget and in the capital budget to really start painting some of the buildings. And Brandon Center would be on board with that starting next year. We would be looking at doing at the parking lot gate, putting an electric gate in there. And then we wanted to add a shade structure and pavers in between Live Oak and City Gym. I know the base is already there, the footers are already in, but it's something that we wanted to move forward with. That is another way to really sell the Live Oak Center, especially for weddings. They can have their cocktail hour outside and still have their wedding on the inside and have their reception on the inside. As we move beyond next year, just something to start thinking about over the next 2, 3, 4 years, some things that we'll be bringing in front of you over the course of the next 3 to 4 years is replacing the track over at the sport complex, adding AC to the visitor locker room. We already have it currently in the home locker room. We're going to need to start replacing the locker room and concession roofs, resurfacing the parking lots. Over the next, in 2 and 3 years, we would really need to start looking at renovating the Coronado Civic Center. And we put that on for not this coming year, but the following 2 years. And then looking at bringing in new chairs for this building, and then start painting over the next couple years over at the Live Oak Center. It'll be after we do this building, Live Oak will be due for their exterior and interior painting over the next couple years as well. One additional for this year, which is LED sports lighting for the sport complex. To do it all is a big number, but there's a couple different options that we have as well this year. We can either do a phased approach if that's what was decided upon, or there's also another approach of a lease-to-own option. And the lease-to-own option has 3 options unto itself. Whether depending on the down payment, and the best part, I guess, about the lease-to-own option is through the course of the lease, it's maintenance-free. Barring a hurricane, anything that goes wrong with the lights, the company is responsible for it, and they'll come out and fix it free of charge. The 2 top pictures, that's what the aging fitness center would look like right outside Live Oak, right next to the pickleball. And that light there is the lights that we'd be looking at getting for the field lights. That's what I have for leisure services. Can answer any questions you all might have.
Okay. Real quick before we go back one, just to be clear, the lease to own numbers there are for the full 1.6 million.
Yes.
Is it possible, do you have to get to a certain level of before that becomes an option? I mean, if we wanted to say, let's do phase one only, can we at least to option just
Yes.
phase one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Got
can
it.
have I can break down those costs for the
Okay.
company as well.
All right, just wanted to put that forward, make sure that was clear. Commissioner Colodi, I saw your hand up.
Go back to the skate park. Do we have any money in the budget this year?
For the
Skate park.
We
You have
don't.
200,000 for 21-22. Is there any money in for this year?
we were going to be pulling money this year from the impact fees, the recreation impact fees, and that was going to be part of the match for the Echo. But the big caveat there was getting the Echo grant.
Okay, but so that's not occurring this year, but the monies don't come out of the general budget, they're coming out of the recreation impact fees.
Correct.
And you don't feel there's enough time this year to put an Echo grant in?
Well, they just haven't set their dates
They're
yet.
not ready yet.
Yeah. And typically, by the time they actually go through their normal process, we probably, at this point, wouldn't find out whether we were approved or not until June, maybe July. And by the time we get to that point, then we're going to start going out to RFP. We just wouldn't be able to get everything completed where it needs to be to get it within this year's budget. If we can pull it off, we'll definitely try. But we just wanted to,
But if we don't apply now, going a year forward, we would be in the same boat, correct? For the following year after that.
well, we're going to essentially look at, one of the questions I'm going to have for them at our mandatory meeting that I would have to go to for the Echo is after, they're pushing all the dates back right now, but will they go on the same cycle next year? If they're going to stay on the previous cycle where everything is due typically by the middle of December, then everything will be right in line for next budget year. But if they're going to push those dates back again, then we would just put in for the grant. And
That
then,
was my question.
mhm,
So if we don't get ready now,
right.
we should theoretically have enough time to go in later on during this calendar year
Right.
for the next year.
Right.
That's it for now.
Other questions, comments? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. David, how you doing?
Good.
Looking at the slide where you talk about expenses, you have year-to-date expended. Is that how much of the budget you've expended? I thought I heard you say something about what we're saving on expenses. Did I misunderstand that?
Oh, yeah. So that's year to date. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I'm on the one where the sports complex operating expenses is 28.2%.
Yeah, that's something that that's what we've extended year to date. So through essentially midway through the second quarter, we're far lower than the 50%, as if being right next to being half the year being over, and a lot of that is attributed to the savings that we're seeing from the addition of the turf field, of not having to do as much work out there. We don't have. We've been successful in bringing.
Not to interrupt you.
No,
So
you're good.
the year's almost half over,
Mhm.
and you've only expended 28% of your expected budget for the
Right.
year. Okay, good. So when we start talking about things like the irrigation pump, or not necessarily the irrigation pump, the netting for the softball fields, do the fees we collect for the softball tournaments
Mhm.
cover these costs, or are these just, are we just operating, are these not even close? Or, in other words, give me an idea of the expected revenue from the savings of the operating expenses plus the income from the tournaments, is this, it doesn't appear that that's enough to cover it.
Well,
Netting 75,000 seems like a lot of money for netting. Is it that we're doing this with tournaments, or is this affiliated with the school? Give me an idea.
It's a safety for anyone who's using the softball fields, whether it be our future girls softball program, our Little League baseball program, tournaments, the high school plays their softball games out there. I mean, currently right now, we were projecting, even with COVID, we're already sitting at 57% of our projected revenue for the sport complex. We've already hit 57% of what our projected was for the year.
Is your projection for the year less than it was the previous year?
No.
Okay, so you're on target.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is when you say tournaments, are we spending $75,000 so we can accommodate adult tournaments, which is possibly more, are we getting a return on, and don't get me wrong, I don't want a return, I understand how the sports complex runs.
Right.
I'm just trying to determine the cost benefit
Sure.
of a $75,000 netting, which we haven't had before, and who really wants it. So I don't want to go into that much detail tonight, but I am a little, I'll get with you later on those kinds of questions.
Sure.
In my mind, I want to prioritize certain things. We've done a lot for the Live Oak Center. I want to see what we can start spreading that wealth around. We should have, when we did the Live Oak Center, consider putting some of those other things in there. I'm particularly interested in the skate park. I don't want to add more when we can't take care of what we got, or it's not really functioning at a capacity where it's competitive, if that makes sense.
Yep. Makes perfect
So
sense.
I hate to hear that Echo is not taking applications. That's a shame. That doesn't stop the fact that we have a problem with our skate park that needs to be redone.
Right.
So I'm trying to balance all this stuff around. How do we balance the kids, the seniors, everybody's involved in the community here. We have a very involved community, but I definitely want to start trying to prioritize that. The skate park's high on my list personally.
Right.
I would hate the $100,000 for the grant.
It would be.
I would hate to not have that.
200,000.
I'm sorry?
It would be 200,000.
Oh, the grant itself would be 200.
Yeah, and then we would put in 200.
Okay, I was stuck with 100 and 100, so thank you for that clarification. That's a lot of money. I wouldn't want to pass on that, but I don't want to create a situation where we never get to where we need to be because we're waiting on Echo. We don't even know if we're going to get that money.
Right.
So this Coronado Civic Center, we have a lot of buildings, and I don't know how much use they get. So when I hear that we need to do stuff to that building, my question is, we got the Women's Center, it's a historic building. Now, the Coronado Civic Center may be able to be classified as a historic building. I don't see much in the way of historic value there. So I'm going to get in a lot of trouble saying that, I'm sure. But you bring into us a lot of good questions that we're going to need to answer for you. And so I just see a lot prioritizing that. We can't be everything to everybody all the time. And when I hear upgrades at the Live Oak Center, we just built that facility.
Right.
I'm not, we have a national problem of our infrastructure is not being kept up with, but we're building more, So I don't want to chase that ball too fast ourselves. Anyway, I've said a lot. That's just want to give you an idea where my head's at.
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartman? Do you have any?
So I'm going to take a little different approach here. Last year we talked about naming rights, a naming policy. Particularly we were talking about the football field. Now we've had some other conversations about some other complexes or facilities within the sports, within leisure services. Where are we with that policy? I mean,
The policy is done, and
Okay.
you all approved that last year. One thing now with our new purchasing coordinator, with Janet on board, I'll be working with Janet to actually put a bid out to actually start doing, to bring in naming rights to let companies kind of bid on that.
okay,
that prospect. We would potentially start at the complex, whether it would just be, a field,
Right.
The fourplex of the four, baseball fields, the softball, threeplex, the baseball stadium, the soccer fields. We can start, renaming some of those fields after businesses. And then we would start getting into potentially other, whether it be the skate park or, other buildings potentially.
okay.
But that would all be brought to you all for final confirmation, for any potential naming rights.
Yeah, because there seems to be an interest, especially in the community, for some of that. Now, some of it obviously isn't going to be lucrative cash-wise,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly there are options out there to maybe fund some of these projects
Sure.
via other avenues. So thank you for that. That's all I had.
Yeah, I think we have a real opportunity. Commissioner Colletti, I see you. I'm going to come back to you if I just can speak real quick, and then we'll come to you, and then I want to try to leave at least another half hour for the other presentation. I'm kind of in line with Commissioner, actually both of my commissioners, actually all three, but so I think we do have some revenue opportunities, and I hope that we can start capitalizing on those this year. Naming the stadium, I think we could potentially see some real money from that. I think we have to, it's probably not an area of expertise for us, so we probably should bring in someone, somebody that can maybe volunteer their time and effort of how to help us do that and make that attractive. We could probably find someone who'd give us a few hours of input, that has done that before. But I know there's money to be had there. So hopefully, as those things come in, we could see some of that. When we look at these capital project requests, my prioritization would be something like this. So I hate hearing Band-Aid type stuff. Like, that's just a terrible. We're not in a position as a business entity where we should be taking that approach, where we're spending more to maintain a car when we could just buy a new one. We're spending more to maintain equipment than we could just buy new ones. Like, we have the capital. We should just get the new stuff. So elevate all those things, and then preventative maintenance, things like paint, caulk, building up any kind of a deferred maintenance backlog. Again, when you're in our situation, we should try to stay ahead of that where we can. So I immediately prioritize things like the pump, the painting, the caulking, the sandblasting. That saves money in the long run. That's how you run a good operation. So those are big on my list. Low-hanging fruit things like the gym lights. I mean, I've spent time in our gym. I know the Bay James Center as well. I mean, $12,000 to do that. That'll make a huge difference. Those gym lights are terrible. They take forever to turn on. They flicker. They turn on and off. They're terrible. So low-hanging fruit, again, we're in a position we should just do some of those things. And then I would say to Commissioner McGurk, his point, before we go start trying to, add that shade structure and pavers between the live oak and the gym, like, that's not going to, I don't see an ROI on that. I don't know that's not going to rent the facility. I'd have a real hard time with that right now when I've got the track that it's in the shape that track is in. Because I've stood on that track. I've seen our girls squad specifically. I know a lot of people use it, but I was there one day when they had a meet on that track, and it's an embarrassment. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be an injury is what it's going to do, and we're going to ruin some athlete's career, and I'm going to feel terrible. So I think the track should be a pretty high priority for us. Maybe we can get some revenue that can help offset it, but I think it has to be a high priority. And then the LED lights, and we I know I've been hot on that for a while, but I think that some of the operating costs can offset the expenses over time. So I'd love to see us trying to argue let's pick one of them. Let's start with one of the phases. The football stadium probably gets the most use to me from both visitors and usage of the field, because it's two elements. It's the viewing people and it's the people in the field. Mm-hmm. There may be other fields that get more just usage, but if it's only 10 or 15 people and there's literally no one ever in the stands, That's different than the football stadium is a stadium. It could fill up the stands, and so you get more people to see the benefit of the bang for the buck, if you will. So I would like to see that be a priority. And I agree, the skate park. I mean, it's an area we have literally, for the most part, neglected for a while, at least the infrastructure, the buildings. So, however we have to do that go, you guys are the experts, but let's try to pull that together. And then kind of just as a broader thing, this is more for the kind of the finance team as we see these the next time. But one thing that's continually kind of hard for me at least to capture is we're always looking at things kind of in a vacuum, and so it's hard for me to tell when these kind of things start coming. I don't know where, like, what do I have to work with? If we're coming in way under budget this year, could we knock some of this stuff out? Would these things be a radical increase to the budget based on what we had last year? So just seeing a series of columns, the way I always presented this in my old world was, prior year actual. This is what we literally spent the last full year of operations. This is the current year budget that's approved as of right now. This is where we're at year to date. So those two columns that you had in the presentation. This is the year to date projected. I don't know if y'all do any of that, and if you don't, that's fine. We can put that aside. But here's what we think expenses will be based on run rates. And then here would be the proposed. If we did all of this, here's the proposed budget. And it'd be amazing if we could break that between ops and then one-time or capital expenditures. This is the kind of the fixed expenses, salaries, et cetera, and then these are the, last year we replaced this, and this year we're trying to replace that. I don't know if that's a view that we can get to. We can talk offline about it, but I think it may help us digest some of this better to see it versus just a list of projects, because it's tough to know, like, I don't know. I mean, I think Commissioner McGurk was kind of probing at that, like, hey, it seems like we're coming under this year. Maybe we could just get some of this stuff done this year. Or, so anyway, just some broad feedback. Commissioner Colodi, you had closing comments on this one.
Just, have we done a comparison as to how much we budgeted this calendar year, or this fiscal year, and what you're proposed? Is it higher or lower? Do you know?
In terms of
Capital projects in this year,
as opposed
2021
to
as opposed to 21-22. Which way are we going? You don't have to tell me now, but
right now for 2021 we didn't put anything in.
For anything?
Well, for the sport complex we didn't put anything in. For leisure services we had a truck, one of the pickup trucks.
Okay, because I would like to see that. And regarding the pickup truck, why don't we buy it now? Why is it on hold?
It was just on hold until everything to get past, I think, COVID and through all the union agreements and things of that nature.
Okay, so basically you could purchase it now and it wouldn't come up the next year.
Right.
On the lighting, after the 10 years, we own it, and we would have to then go on to maintenance contracts at that time. Okay, I would consider doing the big field first. It is a big nut to pay for all at one time. Even for leasing, it's still a lot of money to put in every budget. Other than the other things, I don't have any real difficulty with any of them. I would like to see the skate park brought up to a little better standard. I know when I went out to the dog park this past weekend, skate park was full. So it's highly used, and it's kind of unique. So I would like to see that. And on our cost comparisons, when you have the year-to-date and stuff like that, it isn't especially helpful because our costs are not linear throughout the whole year. So as the mayor was bringing up, it would be nice to know January of the last couple fiscal years where we stood on that. Sometimes the costs are up front, sometimes they're at the end. That's it, Mayor.
Okay. All right. David, thank you very much.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to working on this through the rest of the year.
Mayor, if
Yes.
I just the idea of the mini budget workshops is, they'll have the wish lists, and then for the commission maybe to give a priority out of the wish list. Because typically what happens is when we do the budgets, then depending on what we have in the budgets and depending on what the commission priority at that time. That's what we include in the proposed budget. So I got the LED lights and the skate park as some of the priorities out of this meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, from my standpoint.
And we'll come back on terms of the LED lights, in terms of which would be the most economical, feasible option in terms of the lease or the buy or the phasing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say don't limit it to those two, because I don't know if my fellow commissioners didn't quite go into the details that I did, but, you know, some of the things like the paint, the caulk, the sandblast, I mean, I think if we get behind on those, you gotta pay that eventually, so I'd rather see us maintain it than get behind, so.
It's the same way with the pump house.
Agreed, yeah.
You know, if the grass dies, nobody's going to play softball.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, and it's, what, 15, 20-year-old pump house, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things that kind of need to be a,
So David, out of all the fields, which one is used the most?
Out of
in
all the
sport
fields,
complex?
probably our softball fields are used the most.
So in terms of if you want to put him like in a ranking, so you have the softball, what would be the second one?
In terms of the amount used, probably after the softball fields, the 4 baseball fields.
So softball, baseball, and then football, or
Mhm.
soccer before football?
Probably the football stadium, and then soccer, and then multi-purpose, and then I think I tried to put them in it's down already, but I think I tried to put them in the order of that they're pretty much used for the most part. In that, I put football first just because of what even you were saying, Mayor, with all the fans that are going to be there from a site standpoint. But.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks, David. So as faith comes, I think what I'm hearing city manager say is they're kind of putting out, you know, hey, here's all the possibilities. Here's the things we brainstormed and think we could do. We obviously don't know what the total budget is, but trying to give some indication of, yep, love this project, don't like this project, just some, you know, we're not going to go through and rake in everything, but just give staff some indication so when they come back the next time, they've eliminated some and brought us a few things to consider on the other ones. Is that?
And it makes it easier for me when I review the budget with the
Yeah.
department directors, is to see which one of the projects that it has some priority from the commission that I could maybe manage to get it in somehow.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Yes, Faith, go
Okay,
ahead.
good evening, Mayor and Commission. Let me get used to this thing. Okay. So I know you're familiar with maintenance operations. We have 8 different divisions. I don't think I need to read all that for you.
No.
But I want to go over some of our goals and accomplishments over this past year. These first 2 are actually on your agenda for tonight to approve. I'm probably being a little overly optimistic that we'll be able to do that in March. It'll probably flow more into April or May for the resurfacing of the city streets and bike path. As you know, the basketball courts were resurfaced, and you already had your ribbon cutting for that project. The city marina restroom facilities upgrade, the design's complete, and it should be going out to bid next month. On the replacement of the large fishing pier at Buena Vista Park, which does have some fined funds for that. We did a pre-bid meeting today. We had a good turnout of contractors. We had, I think, 6 or 7 at least that came out. The bids are due on March 23rd, and that's about a 150-day construction time for that project. We are also in the design and permitting phase for replacement of the fishing pier at Rocco Park with FEMA funds. They did authorize those funds through Hurricane Matthew. That's approximately a $300,000 project. And one of the items I think I need some direction on is the Spyglass Fishing Pier. We did have DMC go out and do a formal report evaluating that, you know, the condition of that pier and the cost to replace it. I have funding in this year's budget to remove it and dispose of that pier if we've made the decision that we're not going to replace it. I do not have that funding proposed to replace it unless that's a priority of the city commission.
Okay?
If I
Okay.
Yeah,
might,
let's just pause there. We'll just knock it out.
at this
quick.
point,
Go ahead.
as I brought this subject up originally, and we have got the estimate, it's simply too expensive in my mind.
Okay.
So we should remove it.
Commissioner McGurk, you got a comment? Or?
Just, I agree, and not to get off in the weeds, but the Rocco Park fishing pier being closed is now part of a conspiracy of an airport extension.
What?
Yeah, that's the latest and greatest from the
Okay.
social media world.
It is near the airport, so I get it.
It's on airport property.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all part of the moving everything for the expansion of the runway.
Oh, wow.
So
I
is
haven't
the
heard
runway
that
just
one.
going to go straight out into Turnbull Creek then? Is it All right.
So we don't need to bring
Uh,
that back? We can go forward with the removal, or?
How much do we have budgeted for the removal?
I had 19,000 budgeted. We spent 3,250, I believe, with DMC to do the evaluation of the pier, so I have, a little less than 16.
Does it have to be removed?
I'm-
Does it have to be removed?
Well, I do believe people still climb over the fencing and go out there, and I don't think we want anybody to get hurt, and if,
Is there any redeeming value of the poles or anything left there?
I don't have his report with me, but I don't believe
Well,
so.
before we remove it, I want to make sure we have a good, it creates structure for fishing.
Okay.
And now if we have a liability exposure issue, I get it. But if the people ever want to put a pier there again, there may be some redeeming value in the poles.
The other thing with that location that DMC did address was the overabundance of mangroves that are through there and the permitting that would be required to, disturb the mangroves. I don't know enough about that. If I could take the pier down and leave the pilings in, is that something you're thinking? Something like that, or?
Perhaps I could add something to that. The part that's going through the mangroves could probably be salvaged and just redecked without going into the mangroves. The part that does the head of the pier out over the water should be removed, though it's not in good shape, and it is a hazard. So if we could terminate it at the shoreline, it might be a good way to do it. First, it would cut down our costs on demolition, because they could remove that from the water side.
We can look at that if that's what you'd like.
Just a thought. I mean, don't put a lot of thought into it, but if it makes sense.
When you walk on the dock, when Commissioner Kalodi and I went over there, as you get into the dock from Spyglass or Dune Circle, probably 100 feet or 125 feet, it seemed like it was stable. But as you get out, that's where the problem was. But then when we did the evaluation that was done by the consultants, they went down and they looked at the pilings, and the pilings had some damage as well.
Okay.
Maybe you don't see it from top, but so that's why the recommendation was to completely rebuild. I guess there was some, probably few pilings, maybe 12, I think, that you could use.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm okay with, I certainly don't want to invest in putting it back. I'm okay with removing, to Commissioner McGurk's point, I'll defer to staff expertise. If there's a way we could leave a few poles that saves us a little money, leaves the fishing structure, and/or, they're in fine shape and they could potentially be used in the future, I'm okay with that. But obviously I don't want to leave any kind of a hazard, and don't want to put any more money into it than we have to. So if there's opportunities to do it smartly and save a little money,
Okay.
whatever you all decide.
We'll look into that.
So do we have a cost estimate on removal?
The 19,000 I put in, the original budget was based on an estimate I had received last year.
Okay.
Before, at this time last year for
Right.
removing.
So we don't know what the real number would be today.
It whether it's gone up or, and it's totally, it's not just removing and letting it stay on the
Right.
bottom of the river, it's taking it out. too,
Right.
so.
But keep in mind, Commissioner, that we came back to the commission at the request of Commissioner Colodi to use some of the 19,000 for the inspection.
Right.
So right now, I think we spent probably, was it 4,000?
It was 3,250.
Yeah. So I probably would say the demolition probably is going to be between 19 and 24,000 dollars.
Yeah, my point is, I mean, would that money be better used this fiscal year somewhere else and then budget the demo for next fiscal year? That's kind of where I was headed with that. If we just let it sit and keep it closed off.
Right now, it's closed off and it's secure. I mean, it took us, when both went over there, I mean, it's not easy to get on it.
Right.
So it's secure.
Right.
The question is, do we do it now or do we wait until next year budget to do
Right.
it? And I think if we get probably $23,000-24,000, I think it's reasonable to do it now.
Okay.
And maybe save some of the pilings that they say that it's actually in good shape. So we'll report back to you probably
So-
at the next meeting.
Yeah, because if we went out for bid for the new pier, maybe one of those companies could piggyback off, if they're already going to mobilize to build the new pier, maybe we could get them to,
Yeah.
Maybe what we could do is, I think the Buena Vista Park,
Right.
is it out to bid or it's going out to
We
bid?
had the pre-bid today. It's out to
Okay.
bid. It's
So
due
maybe
March
that
23rd.
contractor, if it's whoever the contractor is, we could approach him
yeah.
and maybe just have a change order for that and give us a reasonable price for it.
Yeah, since he's already going to mobilize, that's part of the cost is mobilization. So if he's already here and in the water, maybe he can give us a break on the demo.
So that actually leads to the other thing I was going to say before we move off the slide, and then we're going to have to keep cruising. So I'd say to staff on this, working it in this year versus next year, like whatever works best for you all. That's your call. We do have the Rocco Park Pier also that we're about to go out to bid.
Yes.
I mean, it feels like they're so close together. We have a lot of pier work to be done. You wonder if we couldn't just say, hey, we've got all this work. Do you get any kind of economies of scale? It may not work that way at all, but it's worth asking or worth considering somehow. Could we leverage that since it's all being done at the same time? So just something to think about.
Thanks, Pat.
All right.
Okay, the next thing we'd like to look into, and I don't have total figures for this yet, we'd like to look into the feasibility of bringing our street sweeping services in-house. We spend approximately $60,000 a year to sweep our streets, the ones that we do. Some of our other counterpart cities, DeLand, Port Orange, Holly Hill, no, not Holly Hill, and Ormond, a lot of them have brought the work in-house. The thing is, it's about $265,000 for a street sweeper. It could be funded through the stormwater fund. I'm just bringing it up that we'd like to look into it and possibly propose it for the next budget year. We will be bringing to you a 6-month contract because the current contract expires at the end of March, so we'll have to bring something to you next month to extend the current contract. The services are not up to what we would like them to be from the company that is doing it right now. And as you know, the contracts for solid waste, yard waste, and recycling are up for renewal. We'll be bringing that back to you later this spring as well. And thank you to those of you who were able to come to the Turnbull Street, the dog park conversion on Saturday. That project's done. These last 2 bullets are the standard things we do every year. So our capital project request for next year, I think I had it in last year's budget and it wasn't funded at the time. We are looking at replacing the roof over the administration building at Maintenance Ops. It's 40+ years old, and there's skylights in the fleet garage that need to be replaced. I wanted to note that on the UCF solar feasibility study, that this was one of the locations that they said would be a good location to provide solar. So if the commission was supportive of that or wanted us to look into pricing for that project if we were able to do it. We could look at that for next year's budget too. Okay. The city marina, she's going to be conducting a dock assessment of the marina this year so that she can develop a 5-year long-term, preventative maintenance plan to address any safety and stability issues. I don't think those are going to result in huge expenses, but she will plan those out so we have a plan in place. For the golf course, they are asking for improvements to their maintenance building to protect the equipment better. A lot of their equipment sits out in the weather, and they want to be able to bring it in at night, store the equipment. They want to have an overhang next to the existing building to keep the equipment that they can work on outside. So that is one of their considerations that they're looking for. And on parks, I didn't put any projects in because of the master plan coming up. So I'm sure there'll be some in that. We already talked about the $700,000 for the resurfacing. This next one, I'll be honest, is like my main concern for our whole department. It's the Smith Street facility. We'd like to bring that staff over to maintenance ops on Industrial Park. Those buildings are in very, very poor condition. I know it's not the big project that the public sees, but it really does need to be addressed if we could see our way to doing that. And if that was approved, we'd look at demoing those existing buildings at Smith Street, so the city could possibly resell that property at some point. Next one, I'm sure you probably noticed all the work that DOT is doing at the interchange at 44 and I-95. All the landscaping that they're putting in. I thought if there was a possibility that we could improve our landscaping along our walls and the first median there. None of that is irrigated though, so it would need irrigation. DOT is not putting irrigation on the slopes with all those plants that they're putting in. So this was not a wish list, but I thought it would be good to improve the rest of the landscaping.
What does DOT think is going to happen with those plants they're putting in?
I'm sorry?
What does DOT think is going to happen to the plants they're putting in?
They've got, maintenance guarantees through their contractor, and they say they're not putting, that they'll come out with water trucks for so long, and then the whole nature will.
They did that 10 or so years ago they did that, and the water truck would be there just jetting water up, and then it all just died, and it looked like terrible. And then I get off if you go to Busch Gardens, you get off on the main thoroughfare there in Tampa, and you see their overpasses, and they've got these beautiful, they actually have retainer walls, like paver retainer walls, with these beautiful layers of landscape. It looks gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And ours is just...
The landscaping, it's intensive landscaping too, all that they're putting in there.
Are they doing, I saw the trees go in so far, I haven't seen anything else go in.
Yeah, there's a lot more in the plans
Yeah.
coming in, so.
Okay.
Just to reiterate my point,
Yeah.
this is the equipment, the storage bay at our maintenance office on Industrial Park. That big storage bay is rusting significantly. That's one of those we looked at a price 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was $150,000 to sandblast it and try to repair it. And then we looked at, maybe it'd be better to replace it. And of course, this is Smith Street, the inside with the roofs that people won't go on to help us fix. So, I know you've seen those pictures before. The Stormwater Division, all these numbers came from Kyle. So these are the 5th Street Bridge replacement, the Barracuda Bridge. He's got funding, the cost going through 22, 23 for those 2 projects. And the Corbin Park Stormwater Management Plan and the Historic West Side. Those were awarded to consultants who are working on those plans. And then each year we're able to do a lot of these small stormwater projects using city personnel or bundling them together and going out to bid to do some of the small ones. So we've had the luxury of having the 250 this year, and we were going to ask for that for next year. Okay. And these are basically our capital equipment requests. You can see they're all replacing vehicles. Most of these are all replacements of vehicles that, these are 2006, 2008. They'd like to get a mounted trailer lift for the different projects, trimming trees. Well, not the building department, but the building division, I mean. But working on lights, street lights, hanging banners, those kind of things. The golf course is looking for 2 pieces of equipment. Chemical sprayer to replace a 2001 unit, and a carry-all vehicle to replace a 2006 unit. Parks has a replacement program for the 2 Ford Rangers. They have close to, one's over 100,000, the other one's 85,000. We've been planting a lot of trees. They'd like to have a tree fork for the skid steer to help them plant trees. And they're looking for a lift as well. And a pressure washer trailer. We get a lot of requests for pressure washing, so a second one would be beneficial for us. And stormwater is looking at a loader excavator and an equipment trailer. And streets is looking for just 1 pickup truck replacement. And I guess that was it. If you have any questions.
Okay. Gentlemen, we just have a few moments here, so I ask you to keep your comments as brief as possible so we can make sure to get our break in. With that, I'll go to Commissioner Colodi.
Yeah, a priority for me would be relocation out of Smith Street also. And along with that, if we're putting in a good-sized roof, the solar that we're looking at could be added to that roof also. So it could be a significant array up there, which would reduce the overall annual maintenance costs for the array. And on the demolition of the buildings, perhaps if we file for a grant,
Brownfield?
Yes, brownfield grant, something may come out of that. But I don't know if we would get to that next year anyhow, but just consider that when making up the budget request. Other than that, everything looks pretty good to me.
Okay.
Faith, what's your wish list, or what's your top item?
My top item is moving my staff out of the Smith Street building and over.
I've been up here for 8, 9 years, and every single year that Smith Street has come up. So I'm more than willing to do whatever needs to be done to finally get that remedy. That seems to have been there but kicked on the back burner, and then moved up and kicked on the back burner. So I think the Smith Street is priority for sure. Okay. Thank you.
So I agree with my comrades here. We should have been out of Smith Street years ago. So I certainly support that. But what I would like to see, if possible, if we can do it in-house, is like an overall site plan of that facility, where maintenance is, where the new building would be, where the new L shape would, because as you drive...
We have some drawings, but I would get with Michelle and she can help us draw.
Yeah, because as you drive by, you try to envision where everything would be placed in a,
We'll
you know...
give you a conceptual to
Right.
show the possible relocation.
Yeah.
And also as a suggestion, I have Mark Galvin coming in at the meeting on the 9th
Right.
to talk about the line of credit for the 2 bridges and Washington Street and median landscaping. So maybe as a possibility, if you want to add the relocation of the building maintenance to the maintenance operation, to add that to that list, I think that's what we were trying to do before. And
Right.
So
So I'd like to see a visual of that layout of the whole complex on how it's going to work. And with that, if the I'm pro-solar, so I'm certainly in favor of that. And if the new building could be situated in such to where that would also, if we're going to add a new building with more roof space, and we can take advantage of that, that may be a benefit also, especially with new structures. Then you're looking at 30 or 40-year roofs, so it's not a roof maintenance issue with panels and stuff. So I certainly would be in favor of that.
Okay. So I agree, Smith Street's got to be a priority. That building, that entire site really is kind of an embarrassment to the city, and that's not your fault. I'm not laying that on you. I'm saying we have got to invest in that. Hopefully, one thing as we zoom out and look at the whole budget, there could be some potential revenues that are budgeted from divesting other unused properties, maybe even that one, or leasing them, or whatever it may be. So hopefully, we can consider that as we look at it. But yeah, we've got to do something. Having people in that building we've got to do better. I wouldn't want to send my staff to it, so I really sympathize with you having to know that you have staff in that building. So we've got to do that, and it should be a top priority. The other items, there's a lot of detailed items here. I would say, I don't know how much we'll have funding for after we do everything else, but the maintenance type items, as I said the last time, any Band-Aids, like, hey, we're spending more money on this. If we could just get the new equipment, it would save us this much time, effort, money, maintenance, whatever it may be. I would certainly prioritize those. The street sweeper one, you kind of work that in. I mean, that's probably a discussion that I'd have to look at. If we're paying $60K a year in-house, it's $265 to buy the equipment, but then there's the ongoing, somebody's got to run it. It's not autonomous. So what does that look like over a long term? And I talked to Colin about this. Are there opportunities? Does every city need their own street sweeper? Could we not do some kind of a regional agreement maybe? I don't know the answer. We probably don't have time to debate it now.
I have talked to a couple.
Okay.
I've talked to Volusia County. They have 2 street sweepers. The thing is, they run their sweepers during the day, though.
Yeah.
And they would possibly, be interested if, we didn't get too far because they said during the day on a Friday or a Saturday. I don't think that would work over here.
No, we do ours overnight. So if
We
theirs
do,
is parked
but-
overnight, we can use theirs. So.
But we did try to ask them, and some of the issues we have with the sweeping, besides he's not doing a good job, but like say you look at Flagler, if he doesn't go on the right time, then what he does is he kind of goes around the cars and he doesn't really sweep. So
No, you have to do Flagler at 3 or 4 a.m.
Well,
I mean-
they go out at 5 every, it's payday Thursday. The Parks crew goes out at 5 to blow all the sidewalks off into Flagler. The problem we've noticed with this type of sweeper is that a lot of times he's just pushing this, it's not really
It's not
picking
sweeping it,
up
it's
like
just
it
pushing
should.
it, yeah.
It's just being pushed.
Yeah.
So we were looking at that. The city of Port Orange, I did ask them, if they would consider it, but their program, they're just switching now.
Yeah.
So they want to get up and running
Yeah.
and see how they do. Some people split it, some people, I think the county has 2 dedicated operators. Some of the cities are using, staff and paying them a night differential to do it, or they split it up among the staff, so everybody's. There used to be a thing about you're driving it and you're always looking behind you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you could,
Yeah.
so, and honestly, probably once we have our own, we'd get a lot more requests to be, sweeping more streets
Okay.
too. So
I'm open to hearing about it. Again,
maybe
I'll
that
look
should be
to-
a whole other topic.
Well, just when you bring it back when we bring the whole budget back, we probably should just look at that item. So, and yeah, so other than that, good work. This particular division is well, this one and the last one really, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, but a lot of things that the things that citizens interact with on a daily basis goes through your team. So, if the grass isn't cut, if the things aren't maintained, that's the kind of things people notice first about a location. So thanks to you and your team for the great work that you do, and we'll support you in any way we can.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. With that, we're going to adjourn this workshop, and our next meeting begins at 6:30.